welcome back to the Cozy Soul Knitting Podcast. If you're new here, hello, welcome. I'm Saoirse and I'm a knitter in the Pacific Northwest area, specifically Greater Seattle area, and this is my knitting podcast where of course I talk about my knitting. If this is not your first time here, thank you so much for joining me again. I appreciate it and I'm glad to have you back. Hopefully I can keep you company for a little bit while you're knitting or maybe crocheting or whatever craft you might be doing with this podcast on. It's episode 23 and I have some finished objects. I actually have, I have 3, I think, finished objects to share with you. One of them is not blocked, but that's okay. And then I have a few whips, I have some new cast-ons, and a couple acquisitions, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about future plans, though I feel like I don't have any, I don't have any definitive plans that I haven't already talked about. Maybe a few things that I can share that I'm thinking about casting on soon, and then also I am going out of town for my friend's bachelorette trip. Not this week, next week. Like not this next weekend, but the weekend after. It's currently Tuesday, September 3rd, and I think I'm going to be trying to get this uploaded on this Friday. So I also need to think about what projects to take with me on that trip. So I may think out loud a little bit in this episode about what I want to take with me, because it's really not for, it's a very short trip. Like it's not like I'm going anywhere for a week or 2 weeks. So I really don't need to worry about like running out of knitting. Like I think if I brought one project it would be fine. I just don't really know what that project should be, what I want it to be. I'm thinking it should just be my vanilla socks, but that just sounds boring to me right now. So we'll kind of think out loud in this episode and maybe you guys can give me ideas. Let's start off with what I'm currently wearing. If you have been here before, you've probably seen this, but it is now finished. It's blocked, and I'm wearing it. So this is my Fjolla pullover sweater. I think it's just Fjolla. I think it's just the pattern name. It is a pattern by Isabell Kraemer, and it is like a nice kind of lacy sweater. The yarn that I used is Knit Picks Galileo yarn, which is a merino and bamboo blend. I think it's 50-50, and I got the colorway Orion, which is just this really pretty green color, which of course I love. And yeah, you guys can see the lace detail on this is just so cool. I love it so much. So this is a modified contiguous satin sleeve, and it has like this lace pattern up here and down the sleeves, and then it also has, I don't know if you can see, on the body and on the sleeves it has this faux seam, which is just a purl stitch. I don't know if I'll be able to share with you because I'm pretty short, but it does, I knit mine to, I think, the length specified, so it just kind of hits right at my, I guess, my hips, and yeah. So definitely below where like my pants would come up for sure. And it also in the pattern has you increase a little bit, I think kind of starting somewhere in here, don't exactly remember, but it's not a ton of increasing, just a tiny little bit. I'm literally standing on my tippy toes right now, I'm sorry. But yeah, so it's just a it has a little bit of shaping here, but not a ton of shaping, and if you were to knit this and you didn't want the shaping, super easy to just not do the increases. That is my Fjolla. I'm trying to think what else to talk about. The yarn is very drapey and really, really fun, gorgeous color. I have a feeling it's gonna pill a lot just looking at it right now. This is my first time wearing it. I did want to keep it nice for the podcast, and I just didn't really have an opportunity to wear it yet. So it's been folded, kind of just sitting in this room waiting for the podcast. So if there's wrinkles in it, it's from the folding. yeah, it's actually perfect, I feel like, for today's weather. It's kind of gray and overcast out, but it's not like cold cold. So this is kind of nice. It's like warm, but not too warm. I am wearing like a little cami underneath it just because I felt like my bra may have been sort of showing, like the color of it may have been showing through a little bit, so I just decided to go ahead and throw on a cami just in case. But I feel like this is something I would, with just like a nude bra and just wear it, not necessarily need anything underneath it. And yeah. You knit this, I think you start knitting it flat, and then when you connect it in the round right here, you start this lace part right here, and then the rest of it is knit in the round. And then you split for sleeves, of course, as well, and then obviously the sleeves are knit in the round. And yeah, I think it's a nice, garment. I like it a lot. I feel like it's a little bit baggy right in the body and like not in the sleeves, so I don't know if that's maybe a gauge issue, like maybe my gauge on the sleeves was tighter than on the body, but I kind of would have wished the sleeves were just a little bit looser than the body, but it also could be like, I don't know, I do have like thicker arms, I feel like, I don't know, and so that could be why that it's just, you know, it doesn't fit the same way here. I'm not sure, but overall I like it, but I have not worn it out or anything. And sitting here right now, like it's gray out and I have my ring light on, that's all. And it does kind of get hot, so I don't know, but I feel like this is nice. And it's very drapey. I think I said that already. I feel like I don't know what to say about this. So I think I've talked about this quite a few times in my podcast. I really like the pattern. It was super easy to follow. There is a lot to it, I feel like, but you just, you know, you just follow step by step, and it's not that overwhelming. I think when you like look at it as a whole pattern, it can be like, whoa, there's a lot going on. But the directions are super concise and clear, and you just, you know, follow them, keep track of where you're at when you put your project down, and I feel like you're good to go. So yeah, and I think the only other thing to mention is I did Italian bind off on the sleeves and the body, and yeah, other than that, I didn't make any modifications. So I think I was saying before I blocked this, the neck, like where I picked up stitches in the back for the neck for the collar, it was like doing a weird thing. It's fine. I feel like it blocked out pretty well. It looks like maybe I picked up a few too many stitches in the back, but like it's blocked out flat pretty much, and I feel like it doesn't feel weird or anything, and I mean, my hair is gonna cover that anyway, so even if it did look a little wonky, it's probably fine, but I don't think it looks bad. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I'm really glad that I knit it. And I want to give a shout out to Faith from the Fiber Fables podcast. I'll leave her channel link down below, because that's why I knit it, was because it was part of a knit along, and I didn't even know this pattern existed, and I was looking at it when she was talking about the knit along, and I was like, those lace sleeves just look so pretty, and I want to knit them. And yeah, I don't know, I'm really happy with it. Really happy with how it turned out. I think it's really beautiful, and it's just like a fun, I don't know, it's just a fun pattern to kind of mix things up. Like if you're always doing, you know, kind of simple stockinette like patterns for sweaters, and you want to kind of do something with like a little more to it, but it's not overwhelming, I feel like this is a really good option. Okay, and then I'm just checking my notes here, but I knit the main part of this on a US 7, a 4.5mm needle, and then the ribbing I did a size US 6. And I knit size 4, and then as far as the yarn that I used, I think I bought 10 50-gram balls of this yarn. I fully used 7 of them. I used almost all of the 8th ball, and I have 2 full balls left over. So just to give you kind of a little bit of a guess at yardage for how much I used, and I'm pretty sure I knit everything kind of to the specified length for the most part. I maybe didn't, I mean, maybe I didn't, I don't know. I need to keep track of that better, but I didn't want it cropped, so I think I was following the pattern, at least for the body. So my next finished object, I have not blocked it. I've been a little, I feel like, backed up with blocking, like just waiting for my mats to be free. I mean, they're free now, so I could totally block it, but I just haven't yet. And I figured I'll go ahead and show it. Maybe I'll show it again later after it's been blocked, but I feel like with this type of project, it might not really change too much. I cast on, in between this podcast and the last, I cast on the traveler hat. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, and it's supposed to have a folded, you're supposed to fold up the brim here. So again, it hasn't been blocked. I haven't, I mean, I think I woven in my ends, but it just hasn't been blocked yet, so I haven't cut the ends yet. So if you see any, that's why. I'm just gonna kind of pop this on. It's a little too big for me, so I did knit it with the intention of having it be for me. It's just like, it's a little loose. Like, I don't know, I just feel like it could just decide to pop off anytime. So it's a little bit loose on me. I tried it on my dad and he said it was a little too snug, so it's probably gonna be my mom's hat. But yeah, it just has a 2x2 rib, and you knit it long enough where you can fold it up, but there's no, you know, you don't like fold it and then knit it together. Like it's free to, you know, so you can kind of adjust where you want to fold it. There's no purl bump row or anything like that. And then, yeah, I'm not really, oh, I don't know. I think this is called the traveler stitch. I could be totally making that up or totally wrong about that. I don't know. But yeah, it's just got these. I mean, I don't want to give away too much about the pattern, but I feel like it's pretty obvious from like the design. I feel like I should get closer and show you. Like, yeah. Let me also, like, I don't know if I'm in frame or not. I don't know. I'll just take this off and show you. Yeah, I feel like on her sample, when she's wearing it, it has more in the top part, like it's slouchier on her, and you can kind of see the shape it makes a little bit more. So I don't know if you can kind of see, I don't know what kind of crown decreases these are called, but you can also see the stitch pattern there. With blocking, I could see it kind of growing, especially like vertically, and then it would have a little bit more slouchiness to it. So, but I only imagine it getting bigger with blocking, so it's definitely not going to fit me. So this is a pattern, by the way, by Andrea Mowry. It's actually my first Andrea Mowry pattern that I've casted on. It's not the first that I've bought yarn for and have intended to knit, but it is the first one I've ever actually done. And thought it was really well written. I really appreciate, by the way, this pattern, it comes with directions for fingering weight and for a worsted weight. So I really appreciate that. I kind of hate, not to be overly dramatic, but I really hate when designers come out with the same pattern in a different like gauge, like for different yarn weights, and then they sell it as like a whole separate pattern. It's like, I get like everyone's trying to make a living and I want them to make a living so they could keep doing what they're doing because it's great, but it's not like you created a whole separate design, you know what I mean? So, but I really appreciate that she put both in one pattern, and especially because this is a great little like stash busting pattern, because I actually used this from leftover yarn from my Lumi pullover. So this is Patons Classic Wool Worsted in the Meadow shade. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And I had a full skein and a little bit extra of the other skein that I had used left over from that project. And I picked this hat specifically because I had the right yardage for it. So And it seemed like a fun little, you know, design with the traveler stitch thing going on here. It just felt like it would be a little bit more exciting to knit than just like stockinette, but it wouldn't be a full like ribbed hat, which I feel like always kind of kills my hands. So this was a super quick knit. If you're looking for a gift knitting hat pattern, like you want to knit some hats for Christmas, but you kind of want something a little bit different, but still quick and easy, I would definitely recommend this pattern if you like the design. It was fun, it was engaging. I think there was one point where I kind of kept miscounting my rows and forgetting where I was in the pattern repeat, and I had to tink back a couple of times. And then I think at one point I had messed up a few rows, like quite a few, maybe like 2 full pattern repeats prior. So I just went back and I just picked up my stitches and ripped back to that point because I was like, whew. Yeah, but still, even making mistakes, it was a very quick knit. So definitely, if you're looking for some gift knitting patterns and you like the look of this one, I would say it's a good one to do because it keeps you engaged, but it's still pretty quick. I knit in the size 4, which I think is the adult small. And then the other thing about this though is that I don't know about you guys, I don't know how to, I don't understand how ribbing swatches work. Like, I get it, like, I get it, but it's like, I just feel like it's never accurate for me. So, let me look up real quick what needle size I used. So I used 4.5mm needles, and oh yeah, and I started this on August 24th and finished it August 30th, so yeah, I feel like that's about a week-ish, right? Sort of. I did do a gauge swatch, but in order to get to 4 inches, I did have to stretch it. So I think, did I go, I don't remember what needle size. I think it calls for a US 7. So I think I just went with it because I was like, well, I'm close, and if I can stretch it, right, which would mean that if I had more stitches per inch. Am I thinking this through properly? Right, I had more stitches per inch. I would have had to go up a needle size to get gauge, but that would have been so like see-through and gapey and like too loose, I feel like. So I didn't do that, and it turned out bigger than I think it was supposed to. I actually also did not measure the finished circumference. I'll do that, I'll like measure it, especially after blocking, and I'll put up the measurements, but it seemed like it would be too big because I think I have like a 22-inch circumference on my head, and this one I think was supposed to be like 21 inches circumference, so it's supposed to have negative ease, but it's like too loose, so I don't know. I'll have to measure it and kind of see, but gauge swatching with ribbing is just like, because they say like don't stretch it, but I don't know, because if I had gone up to meet gauge, it would have been even bigger, and I don't know. Anyways, sorry, I'm all over the place with this, but anyways, I decided to cast this on because I had the yarn for it already, and I've been feeling lately a lot. I think maybe I already talked about this, but I really would just want to start using up a lot of my leftover yarn because I don't know, I just I want to find projects and use them up, and I still have a little bit left of this yarn, like I don't even know, not a ton, but a little bit. I've put it into a baggie, a little Ziploc baggie with other worsted weight yarn that I'm probably going to make some sort of scrappy blanket with as I get, you know, more and more yarn. We'll see. But yeah. Oh, and I casted this on because I was going to the Mariners game that was like the Stitch and Pitch game. I don't know if other baseball teams do something similar, like a little knit night where they have like one section that they sell tickets for that's like for people who want to go and knit at the game. I think you can always go knit at baseball games. I've seen people do it, even when it's not like a thing, but this is like just a specific night for knitters to come out and bring their knitting to the Mariners game. And so yeah, it was a big group of us that came, and only a few people I think weren't knitting in our little group, but we're getting, like within this group there's 2 guys that we've gotten to start knitting, and it's really fun. So and there's just like 1 guy that hasn't started to learn how to knit yet, but we're like, eventually we're just gonna make it look so fun that he's just gonna be like, yeah, fine, I'll try it. At the game, I was teaching my friend how to knit socks, so very exciting. It was really fun. And I have some acquisitions from that because they also had some yarn vendors there, so I picked up a few things, and I guess I'll just show you now, but they also gave out, like if you had the tickets for the Stitch and Pitch section, you got a free Mariner's tote bag. And it's nice because it's also got this inside with like this striped yellow stripes, and you can, it looks like it's kind of reversible. So if I'm like, if I like didn't want to be, I mean, not that I wouldn't like rep the Mariners, but if I just didn't want to for some reason, like I don't want to be sporty that day or something, I can just reverse it and it would be, yeah, but it's huge. It's literally gigantic. So, I mean, I'm thinking this will be a great project bag for like a blanket or I don't know, a colorwork sweater or something. I might put one of my whips in here, especially as it gets bigger, but cool. We were very, very excited. And my friend and I thought that we had to get there early to get them, but they were just totally included with our tickets. I saw people there like knitting colorwork sweaters. Like, I was like, I don't know how you're like paying attention to that and the people around you and the game. Like, that is some next level multitasking. But oh my gosh, there's a lot of fiber in the air right now. But yeah, so anyways, back to my original point. I casted this on because I thought it would be a fun knit to take to the game, because I figured like I'd be doing the ribbing portion, just the 2x2 rib. That'd be super easy. I wouldn't have to like pay attention to what I'm doing, but it's a little bit more engaging than stockinette. So a little bit more engaging than stockinette. So I figured it would be a good thing to have it casted on for the game, but it was so addicting to knit that I almost finished the 2x2. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of fiber I feel like coming off of this wool. But I almost finished the 2x2 rib before I even got to the game because I casted it on like maybe a day or 2 prior and I just couldn't stop knitting on it. It was so much fun. I really do like this yarn, and yeah. And I was so excited to get to the part with like the stitch pattern. So yeah, it was kind of an addictive knit, and I feel like that's why I knit it really fast, because because it's a small project, but also I just kept picking it up. It was so easy to just pick up and keep going. Like, you don't really have to, I didn't have to mark like which row of the repeat that I was on. Like, I just could look at my knitting and tell where I was. And I did mess up a couple times, but for the most part, once I got it down, it was like, I just look, see where I'm at, keep going. Anyways, so that is my second finished object, and yeah, it feels really good to have like a project that I used up like stash yarn for that was left over. Like, it just feels good to like, yes, I used up this yarn. I mean, I still have a little bit left, but it's scraps at this point, so. All right, so my next whip is probably one of the most exciting things that I've finished this year, and it is my Geogradient shawl. It's done. It's gigantic. I feel like it's probably not all in frame. I can't even see. But this is my shawl. This is my first ever finished shawl. I'm so happy with it. It turned out so nice and beautiful. And okay, if you remember, I think in the last episode I was talking about how long it took me to do one row of the dip stitch on this portion here. It gets a lot faster after the first one. Like, when you do the second one, it's way easier to see. It's way easier to see where you're supposed to insert your needle for the dip stitch for like the first one. So it just goes by a lot more quickly. So I was like, after the first row, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take me so long to finish this. But it did not at all. It was a pretty quick actually after that, and also very addictive to knit, so I just kept going. And then I wasn't really sure that I was gonna do tassels, like the fringe, whatever, because I don't know, I'm not really big on fringe, but I just felt like it looked a little incomplete without it, and I liked how it looked on other people's. So I went ahead and, oh, there's some hair. I went ahead and added some fringe, and it was my first time ever adding fringe. And not gonna lie, it kind of turned out a little funky because I didn't really pay attention to these when I blocked it, so they're kind of crazy. But I figure as I use this and gravity kind of takes over, the tassels will maybe kind of fall a little bit, shorten up, or not shorten up, but kind of like straighten out a little bit. But this yarn is very, don't know, I don't want to call it felty, like I don't think it's gonna felt, but it's single ply and it's very fuzzy, and so I feel like the tassels, like they just don't have enough heft to them to like kind of just stay straight, so they kind of crinkled up a little bit and kind of fuzzed up quite a bit, but that's okay. So I have no clue how to wear this shawl. I feel like when he puts his on in like his videos, his just like seems bigger than mine and just wraps around him like way more. So I don't know if I'm like extremely off gauge. I had a lot of yarn left over too, so I could maybe have been a bit off gauge. I have no idea how to wear this. Anyways, for me, shawls are probably going to be more so about curling up at home and being nice and cozy than like a fashion statement, if that makes sense, because I just don't really know how to style this. So maybe as I get more comfortable with it, it'll be more of a thing that I like wear out and about. I don't know. I tried to do it the way that he does it, but I don't think it's working. I am so pleased with how it turned out though. It looks gorgeous. It's so pretty. It was so much fun to knit, and I think when I finished this, I was like, yes, I'm going to be doing the Mystery Knit Along this year as well, because this was just so much fun. And even though it took me almost a full year to finish it, I started this on October 5th of last year and just finished it. I finished this August 27th. The yarn that I used, by the way, was one of his kits that he put together last year. It was from Life in the Long Grass, and I think it was called the Baroque Gradient. And I think the darkest shade is Baroque, and then I don't remember what the other shades were, but I don't know if that yarn was specifically dyed out for this or if it's yarn that they have quite often. I'm not really sure if you can still get those colorways, but super beautiful. Kind of feel like at some point in the future I want to knit it again, just it was such a fun pattern. If I ever were, which I probably won't end up doing because there's so many patterns that I want to knit and not enough time. But I really loved the crocheted Clue One version that people did, where like instead of the square situation that I have going on, which was like the revised Clue. I'm not going to get into that whole thing that happened last year, but there was a Clue, the first Clue that came out, he revised it. He came out instead and did this one instead. But some people decided to do other things, kind of just get creative, and a lot of people did like a crocheted square instead of this square here. And I love how it looks. I think it matches the rest of the shawl a little bit better with just like the texture and the way that the colors play together. So I mean, I love my version. It looks really, really nice. If I could go back in time and re-knit this, I would definitely opt for the crocheted granny square because I just loved it overall with the other clues. But at the time, I didn't know what the shawl was going to look like, obviously, with it being a mystery knit along. So I was kind of like, I don't want to do a crocheted granny square because it's, I don't know. And I also am not really a crocheter, so I didn't feel confident that I would be able to do one and make it look good. But seeing it and the whole finished object, It looks really nice and I kind of wish that I had done it, but I also really love how it turned out, and I think it's really, really beautiful. But very excited. I did buy yarn to do this year's mystery knit along. I didn't order one of his kits though. I just put together my own, and that yarn is not here yet, so I can't share it with you, but I did just want to say I'm officially going to be knitting it. So let me know if you're going to be knitting, if you're going to be joining the mystery knit along, and let me know what colors, if you've gotten your yarn yet, or if you've selected it, let me know what colors you went for. So those were my finished objects, and I feel like I've been talking about them for a really long time. Okay, so I think I said everything I needed to about that shawl. But yeah, I'm so glad that it's finished and that I have it. It's so beautiful, and it definitely makes me want to get into knitting more shawls. And I have yarn to cast on some other shawls, so I need to get on that. But I feel like probably one at a time is probably best. All right, so let's get into whips. I'm skipping two of them this time around, my vanilla socks and my Faye summer top, because I have not made like barely any progress on them. So we will revisit those next episode. First whip that I want to talk about is my other sock project that I'm working on, which is the Blooming Lavender sock. And I have finished one. I have not cast it on the second one. I'll talk kind of about why in a minute here, but I just kind of want to see if I can show you. So just to recap, I am knitting this in, first of all, it's Blooming Lavender Socks by Stone Knits. And I'm knitting my version in Knit Picks yarn. It is the Stroll fingering yarn. Some of these colors are the tweed ones. The purple is just the regular one, but the other two are tweed. So the main color was Earl Grey Heather. The green contrast color is Dill Heather, and then the purple contrast color is Duchess Heather. And yeah, very happy with how this turned out. So let me kind of go through this, think about it for a minute. So I did do twisted rib on the cuff because the pattern in the book, I don't know about if you were just to buy it off of Ravelry if it would have this, but in the book it has like this construction note and it tells you a little bit about the sock, and in that it says that it is twisted rib, but her sample is not twisted rib, and in the actual instructions for the cuff it just says knit 1 purl 1. I did twisted rib because I was like, it says it is twisted rib, so I did like full twisted rib, knitting one through the, knit one through the back loop, purl one through the back loop, like the whole thing, not half twisted rib, like full twisted rib. I'm a little salty about that because I didn't really enjoy it, and I'm not looking forward to casting on the second sock because I want it to match, so I'm gonna have to do twisted rib again, and I don't like that. But I did. Oh gosh, my fingernail is like catching on some yarn. So I did look at another one of her patterns that actually does have half twisted rib on it. And I think what happened is that she probably just copied and pasted the construction notes for that and forgot to take off that for this one it wasn't twisted rib. So I'm not sure, but basically all that to say is I think it was a little bit of a typo that said it was twisted rib and it's not supposed to be. It has the Eye of Partridge, yeah, heel. I think I talked about that last time. And yeah, as you can probably see, maybe, let me stand up and get closer. So I don't know if you can see, there's kind of this puckering situation here from where my magic loop was, or like where the, you're going from one needle to the other, so you kind of, your floats have to travel longer, but then they're not quite loose enough for that. And so yeah, it got a little bit better as I kept going with this, just by me trying to be a little bit more mindful of the floats, but there's still a little bit of puckering there. And then if you can tell here, there's no puckering because I did the trick where I knit it inside out for this colorwork portion. My tension with where the magic loop is or like, yeah, when I say where the magic loop is, I mean like where you're going from one needle to the other. So my tension was not great, but I think that part will block out better than the puckering issue that I had up here. So definitely from here on out, knitting my colorwork socks inside out for the colorwork portion, because it just helped so much with evening out that float as you're going from one needle to the other. Yeah, and then I don't know, I never know if people feel comfortable, like I don't want to say someone's name and be like, oh, so-and-so did this and like told me about this, and just I would hate if that person was like not super comfortable with me like saying their name and stuff on the video. So I don't know if I should say this person, but one of you guys gave me the tip to knit it that way, and then another one of you I had told, because you were having the same problem as me, and I think I replied in my comment to you that someone else had suggested to knit it inside out, and you had tried that as well and said it worked really well for you. So that was really, really cool. So thank you for the tip. You know who you are. And yeah, I don't know. I would hate to like, I don't know, if someone's like, I don't want to be, don't talk about me on camera. So I don't know if people are good with that or not, but I don't want to, if people want the shout out, I want to shout them out, but if they don't want the shout out, I don't want to shout them out. So I'm like, opting for not. Anyways, I think you guys get what I'm saying. So, but very, very grateful for that tip, because yeah, it just looks so much better. So I have one sock down. I did knit, by the way, I knit size 2 because I was a little worried about the color work making it too tight. I haven't tried this on. Probably won't try it on until I block it, to be completely honest. And if it's too big, then that's okay. I might, if it is too big to the point where I don't really want to wear these, I might give them to my mom. So, because she's like slightly bigger feet, but not by much. So that is my blooming lavender sock, and I haven't cast it on the other one because I actually cast it on another pair of socks, and I needed that needle that I used for the ribbing. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I need that. The needle that I'm using for this other pair of socks, I need to do the ribbing for this second sock, so I haven't done that yet. So the socks that I casted on, I just really, I don't know, I really wanted to knit these during the summer, and it's still kind of summer. Like, I don't know, in my head August is summer, but it doesn't feel like summer anymore. So I feel like this pair of socks is like for me to cling on to summer just a little bit longer. I really am a fall girly. Like, I love fall very much. It's definitely my favorite season, but I think summer is like my second favorite season, and I always end up missing it a little bit, you know, like it just doesn't last as long as I want it to. But in other times when we have like the summer season that's like really, really hot, you know, then I'm like, oh, I kind of wish that it would rain again and stuff. But this year I feel like we didn't really get enough summer, so I'm kind of like sad that it's over. But I cast it on the, I feel like this is going to be really blown out on camera. I'll try to show the colors better. But this is the Coral Cove, is that what it's called? Yeah, Coral Cove socks. I think it's by Yarnia Designs, but I can't remember. I'll put the information up on the screen, like who the designer is and stuff. But yeah, so I am knitting this with a kit from Moonglow Yarn Co, and it's like the same colors that she had a kit for in a DK weight for the Ocean Doodle from PacificKnitCo that I bought. So I think I showed you guys all of this yarn in a previous episode, but it's the same colorways, it's just like fingering weight, so it came with one skein of the main color, and then it came with like some mini skeins. So like pinks and blues, very summery colors, and oh, I'm all tangled. Oh well. But yeah, I think that this pattern, if you even had just like a ton of little yarn sock yarn scraps, yarn sock, if you had just a bunch of sock yarn scraps laying around and wanted to do kind of like a fun stripey, like rainbowy type situation, you could make some really cool scrappy socks with this pattern, because you're just alternating like the main color and then doing the like these little accent colors, these little contrast colors. So I think it'd just be really cool if you had like a bunch of different colors of like sock yarn scraps laying around. And you know, depending on how much of each you had, you know, maybe you would do like 10 different colors, or maybe you would only need 5 different colors or whatever. So I just think that that's a really cool design. I'm definitely going to keep it in mind for future like scrappy socks, because I just think it'd be a really fun way to use up some scrap yarn. Like you would just have a little bit left over and maybe it's not enough to put in like a blanket or something. But yeah, so that's one of my newest cast-ons, and I just wanted to get it casted on before, like, I mean, again, summer's kind of, it's September now, what am I saying? It's not even August anymore. But I wanted to cast it on while it was still, I don't know, kind of warm out a little bit. I did cast it on when the sun was out, so yeah, but also it doesn't really matter, but I do like to do things when they're a little bit more seasonally, like, it's more so the colorways. Like, I want the colorways to be seasonal if possible, if that makes sense. And these ones are definitely more summery colors, but at the same time it'll be like a nice pop of color to work with as it gets like gray out, if that makes sense. So I think it's fine. I'm gonna pause my blooming lavender socks while I work on the Coral Cove ones, just to have like a little bit of something different to do, because I was just a little bored, I guess, with the lavender socks. I don't know, it wasn't boring, it was just like, I've been really bored with my whips. After I finished some of my, like after I finished this and finished my Geogradient shawl, I've just been a little bored with my whips. All right, I'm gonna move on to my next whip, which, let me just get it out first. I feel like I'm like all over the place today. I finished the second sleeve of my Leith cardigan. So as you can see, there's 2 sleeves. So all that's left is the button band, which a lot of you know I have been a little nervous to knit. I do need to block this first, because that was, I think the instructions are like you block this, then you can start knitting the button band after you kind of figure out where the buttons should go, and then you have to block the button band and start seaming it together, and then finish the button band, and then I'm honestly not really sure how, I'm a little confused. So I think the issue that I'm sort of having with the button band is that you aren't picking up stitches as you knit the button band, you like knit the button band and then seam it onto the cardigan. I'm just like, it just seems, I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around it. I think I get it, I get how it works, but it's just like, I'm really nervous I'm gonna make the buttonholes in the wrong place and knit the button band too big or too small, and then have to like keep going back and you know, fudging with it. So I'm sure afterwards I'll be like, wow, it was really easy, I don't know why I was stressed about it. But right now I'm a little stressed. But I haven't blocked this yet just because I was waiting for my Geogradient shawl to finish drying, so this will go on the blocking mat soon, and once it's dry I will kind of figure out, okay, like these are where my buttons are supposed to go, start knitting my button band. That's my Leith cardigan. I've talked about it a lot, so I think I am just going to kind of leave it there. It's knit with Explorer Knits and Fibers, Boucle yarn, their Surrey alpaca, and their earthy DK. All of those were in the Olive Grove colorway from their Spain collection, and the pattern is by Rebecca Clow. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. I mean, the sleeves were very easy to knit, and yeah, I mean, really it's just the button band that's left. So yeah. So my next whip is one that I'm actually excited about. So I think, again, I've been casting things on recently just because I was kind of just like getting bored with my whips and wanting to have something a little bit different on the needles. And so this is one of the things that I casted on. So I had some yarn that I had purchased to do an Oslo hat with, and I got 2 skeins. I have to go change the battery. I changed the battery and I kind of forgot what I was talking about. I think I was talking about the yarn. So I had some yarn in my stash from, I bought 2 skeins of a DK weight yarn to knit an Oslo hat with, and I ended up not using, like not even needing anywhere close to the second skein. I'm not really sure why I think that going off of like what the pattern called for, I think I thought I needed the second skein, but I ended up not needing it. And maybe I don't know, maybe she was being extra generous with like the yardage requirements, or maybe I miscalculated. I don't know, but regardless, I had a skein of this yarn just kind of sitting there, and it was already all wound up because I had tried to use it to cast on the weekend hat by Petite Knit, but then didn't like that, and instead of ripping that one out and starting the Oslo hat, instead I used the other skein of yarn to do the Oslo hat, and then I frogged the weekend hat, if that makes sense. So it was already like wound up and everything and ready to go. It was just sitting there. Had no idea what I was going to do with it. But then recently I probably should have grabbed my Kindle, but I noticed my Kindle case that I had purchased when I got my Kindle, and I just got a new Kindle like pretty recently and got a case for it, and I noticed it was already starting to like wear. Like there was this piece that was peeling off, and I don't know, I definitely bought it like this year, like has not been very long. I think I've only had it for a few months and the case is already like falling apart, and I don't think I read excessively, but I mean, I don't know, just felt kind of annoyed because I'm like, this was super cheap, like in terms of how it was made, if it's falling apart this fast. And to be fair, it's not falling apart, it's just starting to wear, and I was like, I don't want this. And so I bought a clear case to do like the sticker thing with my Kindle, because I think it's fun to like pick out the stickers and everything, and definitely influenced by book talk. And so I did that, but then I got kind of nervous because I was like, my old case like covered the screen and protects the screen when you're not using the Kindle, but this clear one is just on the back, and it would protect the screen if it like fell screen side down on the ground. It would probably protect it because it's like, it's not flush with the screen, it comes out does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But like it would protect it from a fall, but like if I just threw my Kindle into like a bag and say my keys are in the bag, like they could scratch the screen, right? And I don't have like I don't want to put a screen protector on my Kindle. I decided I needed another case to put my Kindle in, and I've always wanted to knit one, but I never did because I always had a case that covered the screen, so I just never really needed one. But I decided to knit a cover. This looks like it would be too small for mine. I have like the newer Kindle, so it looks like it's probably a little too small, but it does stretch. It has a nice stretch to it, so it does stretch over my Kindle. It's very nice and snug fit for it. This is a free pattern I found on Ravelry. It's like the sturdy, cushy Kindle case or something. I'll put it up and link it in the description, but I'll also put up like a picture and the name and the designer, because I can't remember, but it's free, and I would highly recommend it. So it uses the woven stitch pattern, which is really, really beautiful, and it just gives this really nice kind of textured woven look to your knitting. And because you're holding a DK weight yarn double, it just gives like a sturdiness to it, like it's in the pattern name, it's sturdy. So it's a very thick fabric, very cushy. Again, the name for the pattern is very, very apt because it's just, it's literally what it is. Nice and sturdy and cushy. And it's gonna have a flap that goes over and a button to like, make sure it stays on and everything. But yeah, I didn't have to adjust the stitch count to fit my Kindle. I just did the stitch count that she has because This pattern is older, so it was for I think she made it for a Kindle that had like a keyboard on it, which is I think, I know that they definitely don't sell those anymore, but I think her Kindle is a little bit taller than the ones that are out now, but it's about the same width. So, and I figured with my case that I have on it adds a little bit extra, but not a ton. So I figured it would still fit. And then my gauge is also, I can't remember. I think my gauge was like a stitch and a half off or something like that. So I just figured it would be okay. I did have to I had to go down a needle size to get closer to gauge. I think this pattern calls for, I think, a US 7 4.5 millimeter needle, and when I used that I had, what was it, like, I can't remember. I had nowhere near the right amount of stitches. It was something like, it was like was it like 14 stitches or something? It was, yeah. And then so I had to go down in needle size, right? Yeah, to make my stitches smaller so there would be more. And then I got to like 17 stitches, and I think it calls for like 19 and a half stitches, something like that. I could have gone maybe down another needle size, but this, I could tell it was gonna hurt my hands if I did that, and it does hurt a little bit. Like, I can only knit on this for a little bit each day, otherwise it will start to hurt my hands because the gauge is quite tight with this stitch pattern. But it's, yeah, it's nice. And I think with the, again, with the double strands here, the DK weight, it just makes it sturdier than if you were knitting with maybe just a worsted weight yarn. So, but yeah, it was weird that I had to go down in a needle size. I usually always have to go up a needle size, so that was kind of a fun, you know, switch things up a little bit. So it's a free pattern, so I feel like I can talk about it a little bit more. But at a certain point, once it's like tall enough for your Kindle, you bind off one half of it, and then you keep knitting on the other, and then it's like you make a flap for it, and then there's a button. And then also you cast on using Judy's Magic Cast On, so that you can knit in the round, but like not obviously like have a tube, you know, you have it closed off there. So super fun to knit. It's a little bit fiddly in the beginning with like the Judy's Magic Cast On. I followed a Very Pink Knits tutorial for Judy's Magic Cast On, and it was exactly what I needed for this type of project. I've followed her tutorial in the past for other projects where you're doing Judy's Magic Cast On, but like you're gonna knit flat one way and knit flat the other way, so you want to leave one set of stitches on hold. And the Very Pink tutorial kind of assumes that you're going to be knitting in the round with it, I think. And so I've looked at that tutorial in the past, and it was definitely helpful. But this was like the first time where I've actually used it like the way that she did it in the tutorial, if that makes sense. So that was kind of cool. But it was so much fun. It's just, honestly, I don't want this to be over. Like, I'm just enjoying knitting this so much. Like, the stitch pattern is so much fun. And you don't have to, like, I feel like it's very easy to memorize, and then you just read where you're at. Like, you just look for, what I do is like, each time I'm starting, you know, magic loop, I'm starting a new needle, like I just look and I see, like, did I just slip a stitch in the last row? If so, I know that I'm gonna knit around. And then if I didn't, if the slip stitch is 2 rounds ago, then I just look to see which stitch, because you're like gonna knit a stitch and then slip a stitch. So you just look for the one that you slipped most recently, and you knit that stitch, and you slip this next stitch. And so yeah, it's just really easy to like see where you're at. You don't have to really keep track of what round you're on. I mean, if you're a beginner and you can't really read your knitting super well, then yes, you would probably want to keep track of where you're at. But if you're pretty good at reading your knitting, you don't have to keep track of where you're at with the pattern repeat. And it's just, I really like the woven stitch pattern. It's really nice. And kind of want to knit, I mean, I don't know. Kind of want to knit a bag, like a purse, with this stitch pattern. So my brain has kind of been thinking about that, but I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, But you could cut this in half, or not cut it, but just stop and make like a little pouch, maybe a little like, and made it longer. You can make a little notions thing with this. I just feel like, yeah, you could do a lot with this. And I'm just sort of thinking if I could, I wouldn't want to have a bag with this bottom to it because it wouldn't be very wide, but if I could kind of figure out the bottom part of it with this stitch pattern, I just feel like it'd be such a cute purse. And also, I feel like this is something that would be really lovely in obviously a variegated yarn, but also in just like a solid color as well, and then really let the stitch pattern kind of shine through. But I think it looks really good. Like sometimes I don't think textured stitch patterns look the best with variegated yarn. This one does. So I really like it. And the yarn that I'm using, by the way, this is obviously a different colorway, but this yarn is from Quarter Cakes. This one, I believe the colorway was 2 scoops, and I got it in a yarn and quilt shop in Astoria, Oregon. And I think the colorways that they have at that store are unique to that store. So I don't know if you can get them elsewhere, but I do believe that they sell them online. If you're curious, I can give you more details, but super fun. And I think I'll have more than enough yarn for this, but I just basically just wound up, like hand wound a ball off of the cake that was already wound up, and then I just measured the cake every so often to see. And I think when it got, I think like in total I had like 109 grams, so I think when I got to like, it was like 55 grams, I like stopped winding it, cut them, and just started knitting with them held double. I'm trying to think what else. I don't think I have anything else to say about this other than I am just so pleased with it, and I'm really, really enjoying it, and it's literally the perfect size for my Kindle. And I do need to have it done before I go on my trip because I want my Kindle screen protected when I'm traveling with it. So I have another new cast on. I have not gotten very far, but I finally cast it on for the frame sweater by Andrea Mowry. Please ignore this situation here. The tail, my cast on tail for this was extremely long. So what happened was I tried the tubular cast on like 2 times, kept messing it up. So I finally ripped out and just was like, I'm just gonna do, I think it's the Twisted German cast on. I think it was the other one that she recommends for this pattern. So I did the Twisted German cast on, and then I was like, oh, I only had like 20 more stitches left to cast on, and I ran out of the tail. So I had to rip it back again, and at that point I was like, okay, I'm gonna try the tubular cast on again. And I did that, and it worked out that time. And unfortunately though, I think the tubular cast on requires a lot less yarn than the Twisted German cast on, because what I did when I ripped out the Twisted German cast on, I found my slip knot right, and then I gave myself a good amount of yarn so that I would have enough to do it again. But then I decided at that point to do the other one, the tubular cast on. Figured they used approximately the same amount of yarn, and ended up with a bunch of yarn that I tied together. And I will cut it once I'm sure that I'm not going to rip back and start over, just in case I come across an issue where I need to frog back. So I just have the ribbing going. It's probably going to be a while. And then at one point, that was the other thing I wanted to kind of mention. I can't find it though, I don't know where it is. At one point while I was knitting the setup rows for the tubular cast on, I accidentally pulled a stitch off my needles and it undid itself, and I didn't know what to do, so I kind of just like put it back on the needles, but obviously not the right way, and just slipped it because it was a purl and I was supposed to slip it, and yeah, and that kind of created a little, like, it's fine, I'm just not going to be super noticeable, and I might take like some, at the end I might kind of weave some yarn in to kind of close up, but it's like a little hole in the cast on, but it's fine. But I realized, I was like, afterwards I was like, maybe I should, oh, is that it? Yeah, I think it's there. Oh, maybe that's on it. Anyways, it's not super noticeable. I was thinking that there's probably someone has a tutorial on how to fix that when you drop a stitch on your tubular cast on. I assume someone would probably have some sort of advice on how to, you know, fix that without undoing the whole thing. And but I kind of panicked and I was like, I'm just gonna figure it out. Anyways, that is the start of my framed sweater by Andrea Mowry. And I'm knitting with one of the Spin Cycle kits that they were selling when this launched. It was the bundle number 5. I don't know if they still have it, but let me go grab the yarn labels and I'll tell you what the yarn is. So this color, which by the way, this is I think my perfect brown. It's kind of that like golden, it's got a little bit of green and gold in it, if that makes sense. It's literally so beautiful. Also, I am knitting this on, I think the needles that it calls for. I'm knitting it on a US 5 for the ribbing and then a US 7 for the main body when I get to that part. But that colorway is, what is it called? It's called Sunnies. And then the other two colorways, so that was the Spinster's Daughter worsted weight yarn, which is the collab between Spin Cycle and Farmer's Daughter. And then the other one that's that same base, the color is Ranch Romance. And then the Dream State that I'm using for the framed is, I'll put in a picture too so you can see, but it's Dirty Little Secret. So those are the colorways that I'm using. Very, very excited. I think they're gonna look so good together. And I think this kind of brought back my knitting mojo a little bit to get this casted on. I just feel like I haven't had, like, since I finished my Geogradient shawl, I'm like, I don't have any fun big projects to work on, even though I have my leaf, but like the button band is just not exciting to me and I have to wait for it to block and everything. So I'm just like, I have nothing exciting to work on, even though that's totally not true. But that's why I casted on the Kindle case, the Coral Cove socks, and the framed sweater, because I was like, I just need something exciting. I'm pretty sure that's all my whips that I wanted to talk about. My other ones I haven't made any progress on, so, or like very minimal progress, so not really worth talking about. I did wind up some yarn for my mini mock neck tank that I want to knit. I may cast that on before that might be the project I take with me on my trip, because I think it would be easy enough to work on the plane. But it won't be, it'll be like engaging, it won't be boring. I'm just, you know, because I'll have to do shaping and stuff like that. So that might be an option, but I have that casted on, or not casted, I have it wound up, ready to be casted on. But I probably should do a gauge swatch, but I haven't done that yet. So that's one option. That is all of my whips. So I do have some acquisitions. When I was at the Mariners game and they had the yarn vendors there, I did go ahead and purchase a couple of things. Kind of wanted to like support them. And there was one yarn vendor there in particular that just had a lot of fun like hand-dyed yarn. So I decided to get some. I think the yarn shop is called Row House. It's actually literally right here. Yeah, Row House. So it's Row House is the yarn shop name. And then they had birch hollow fibers there. So I picked up these two skeins. This one's Fallen Leaves and this one is Thornwood. And I thought they would make a really beautiful sock. So probably will be knitting a sock or socks with this yarn. It just felt very fall, so I went for that. And then I also found this skein, which is, I'm probably gonna say that wrong. Let's see if yeah, so that's the name. I don't know if the J is supposed to be a Y sound or a J sound or something else. Jorstad Creek, not sure how to say it. But this is their Cornwall Superwash sock. It is 70% Blueface Leicester, 20% silk, 10% cashmere, and the colorway is spruce. And it was so soft. Obviously it's, you know, a lot of soft fibers. And I just decided to get a skein. I thought maybe I could do a hat with it, maybe a hat, but it's just like a beautiful green color. And then the other acquisition that I have, I'm not really gonna show you because it is my yarn advent. I went ahead and I bought the yarn advent from Moonglow Yarn Co. And it came with this project bag, which is very, very cool. And then all of the advent things are in here. And what else to say? It arrived today. I'm gonna show you kind of inside here. However, it is not a like surprise advent, like you know what the colorways already are. So it's not like a it's not one where you like seeing, you know, you had like a theme and then you're seeing like what the colorways are as you open them. Like it is a rainbow set. So that's why I bought it, because I knew I want to use it for the Stella quilt blanket. So I knew that I would be able to make use of these minis. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have purchased it. I always want to get an advent because I kind of get FOMO seeing other people with their advents when they're opening them, and it seems really, really fun. But then I'm like, I wouldn't use it. Like I just wouldn't use them. So yeah, but this one I'm like, since I knew what they were, I was like, oh, that will absolutely be used in my Stella quilt blanket, which I do want to knit like a rainbowy one. So this will give like the base for it, you know, and kind of make it have like, I feel like a cohesive look to it, but then each like motif will have, you know, so they'll have a kind of like the sample that Laura Penrose knit, right? Like it's like a rainbow one, and so I'll just be like collecting, you know, little leftover minis of like sock sets and whatnot that go with each color. And then it came with a really cute project bag with a zipper, which I just feel like is really great and useful. And all in all, I just thought it was a really good value, and I really like her yarns, so I definitely wanted to support. And I like that it's not a mystery, right? Like it's nice to know what you're getting. I get why it's fun to not know, right? I totally get it, but I just think it makes for better planning, like of your knits, to know what it is beforehand to see if you actually want to get it or not. Because I don't know, I feel like I've seen people open up their advents and kind of be like, oh, I don't really know if I want this color, or like I don't know if I'm going to use that, you know. And yeah, so, but I like the idea of it, and it'll be fun to open them up even though I know what they're gonna be. So those are all my acquisitions, and I feel like as far as like future plans go, I don't really have anything to talk about. I feel like all of my kind of upcoming cast-ons are things that I've mentioned, or they will be, you know, random cast-ons that I just decide to do later on. So the only one to talk about is my mini mock neck tank. I think that's the next one that I need to get casted on, but I've already talked about it. So I think that's everything. I feel like this episode was a little all over the place, and I feel like I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure I talked about everything that I meant to. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me while I talked about my knitting. I hope you got some good knitting time in. Let me know if you're working on any of these. Let me know if you're joining the West Knits MKAL this year. Let me know. What else do I want you to let me know? I'd love to hear if you got a yarn advent. Let me know. Give me updates on your knitting projects. How are they going? What are you knitting on? If you were knitting while watching, let me know what you were working on. And yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, if you were knitting something, please let me know what you were working on while watching. But I would love to hear about your projects and maybe some of your future plans if you want to share with me. And other than that, thank you so much, especially lately. Thank you so much for those of you who have been commenting on my videos. I appreciate you. If you're just watching, I also appreciate you as well. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it, and I've been having a lot of fun just doing these podcasts lately. It's been a good time, so thank you for being here. Yeah. If you're not subscribed and you did like this podcast, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button before you go, and if you want to leave me a comment, I would love to hear from you. But other than that, hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will see you in my next podcast episode. Bye!
Alright, this is a song that I wrote about falling too fast, but I wouldn't know anything about that.
I don't wanna lose my grounding, so you catch me not responding, and I press my lips together so you don't find any answer.